We want to go back to these pictures now that we have of Boulder Creek so we can keep our eyes on the water. We also have Sarah Huntley joining us from the Office of Emergency Management in Boulder to tell us, Sarah, tell us more about this surge. What are you hearing?
So at this point, we're actually seeing the creek flow levels in Boulder Creek going down a little bit, which is great news.
Right.
Okay.
Over the last hour, they've gone down about 1,000 cubic feet per second. I want to be very clear, that doesn't mean that the creek levels are not still dangerous.
Okay.
We still are running at about 4,000 cubic feet per second. We usually run about 200 cubic feet per second this time of year. So they are running fast and they are running high. We're also seeing considerable water in the street along Canyon Boulevard and are continuing to urge people, if you've not sought higher ground in those areas, you should be doing so. Or if you cannot get outside and leave the area, it's a good idea to shelter in place, continue to shelter in place on upper floors.
Are there other problem areas other than the Boulder Creek area that you're concerned about tonight in terms of areas that people should be aware of and be trying to make every effort to be safe?
Well, so we are seeing, when a lot of people think about the Boulder Creek area, they often think about the western part of Boulder Creek, right around downtown,
right.
Just south of the Pearl Street Mall. We're actually seeing flooding on the eastern parts of Boulder Creek as well. Our warning about sheltering in place went all the way to 75th, which is the eastern boundary of the city of Boulder. So that's a significant swath of area. We're continuing to see street flooding. Those conditions are improving a little bit in some areas, but there are still streets that are very much underwater.
And Sarah, we were hearing that some of the sensors that are monitoring the surge were actually taken out. Do you know anything about that? Do you know how accurate these readings are?
Those sensors are located higher up in the canyon in the county area, and I don't have more information about that at this time.
Sarah, we've been watching this video tonight and watching the waters move along so quickly and so scarily, for lack of a better term. You've been busy all day today. We saw your first reports earlier today in briefing folks as to what they could expect to happen in the Boulder area and that sort of thing. What's been the biggest problem area today other than the events tonight with Boulder Creek?
So in the city, the events tonight certainly have capped a day of lots of moisture and lots of concerns, lots of watchful waiting, really. Right. Obviously, we are also keeping a close eye with our friends in the county on situations that are occurring in the county, particularly in Lyons and Jamestown.
Right. And is there any progress on that you can talk about?
In the county?
In what's happening with Jamestown? Anything you might have heard that you could share with us in terms of how they're doing with Lyons and Jamestown?
I'm actually not at the EOC at the moment. I'm at the Police Operations Center, Police Department, so I don't have access to county information.
Okay.
And so what happens, say, tomorrow morning, or what happens within the next couple of hours?
Well, we'll still be continuing to monitor conditions throughout the evening. We have not changed anything about our advice to individuals along Boulder Creek. That continues to be a situation that we're concerned about, although, as I said before, it is improving a little bit over the last 60 minutes or so. We obviously, all of us are hopeful that the rain will taper off and stay tapered off for a while so that we can get into these areas and really assess what's going on. But it remains too early to tell if that's going to happen later on today.
And I know this surge was at first anticipated at around midnight, so it's now been, 48 minutes since midnight. Has that surge happened? Is it happening? Do you know what the status is?
Well, as I said, we
predictable?
actually have seen flow levels decrease a little bit. The situation with surges that can be very difficult is that depending on where they occur in the canyon, depending on what opportunities there are for the creek bed to widen on the way down the canyon, because obviously if you're coming down a narrow pathway, a wall of water is going to be higher than once you reach a broader pathway. It has some room to spread out. Also, surges are also very dependent upon what kind of debris they encounter along the way. One of the concerns that we've had is that we know there are piles of debris at various points along the creek. That debris serves two purposes. One, it stops the water from coming down from the get-go, but you also then have water backing up on the other side of that debris, and should that blow out, you can have a much more forceful wave come down. So those are the types of things that we're concerned about in this situation.
So as the surge moves through, and we had heard that it had actually flattened down to about 7 feet or so, I'm not sure that all of us completely understand what a surge is like. Is that 7 feet over the level of water we see right now, or 7 feet over what is considered to be flood stage?
You know, I don't know the answer to that question because it's all from the perspective of the eyewitness.
Right.
You know, eyewitnesses report it, and some may be reporting it from where the creek is usually running. Some may be reporting it based on what they're seeing from the top level of the everyday water.
Right.
So it's really hard to tell with eyewitness accounts.
Okay.
And so what are your next moves? I mean, are you, I'm assuming you're watching the forecast just like the rest of us, but what happens next for emergency crews who are working nonstop there in Boulder?
We also have officers and firefighters out in the area assisting people. We're still getting a lot of calls from individuals who are worried and wanting to know what they should do in their particular situation, so we're advising folks best we can. The police department did switch to 12-hour shifts earlier today, so we had as many available officers on the street as possible